Hello, viewers. This is the number one potato boss from MogPod Gaming, bringing you another Opus 5 spoiler spotlight, Light of Affection. Today we're going to talk about a new spoiler that just came out today of a Warrior of Light. But first, let's talk about some other spoilers. So Illua is a 3-cost lightning 6k forward. She has haste. Each turn, the first time Illua is targeted by your opponent's summons or abilities, nullify their effects. She also has an S ability, activate all the forwards you control. They gain haste until the end of the turn, and until the end of the turn, all the forwards your opponent controls loses 2000 power. So a lot of people were talking up this card, saying that it's very strong, and I think it's a very good card as well. Regarding her S ability, you're realistically not going to haste any more than 1 or 2 forwards, which is just fine, because now they can attack and they can get through. I see this S ability as more of a way when 2 players are locked and they cannot attack, that this will just kind of break the lock and the person that using it is going to break through. The other important part is that activate all forwards part, because lightning doesn't really have that sort of ability that activates all the forwards. I mean, it has Orlando from Opus 4, it has the promo lightning, it has Ramza from Opus 4, it has Jack the cadets that can all activate themselves, most of them using their S abilities, but they don't really activate other forwards. So this only means that they're probably going to give Ice a lot more Del than they already have, because now there's more activates, which means there should be more Del to counteract that. The other important part about her is when she's only targeted by summons or abilities nullify their effect. There's cards like the legendary Kuja or the legendary Lightning in Opus 4 that target forwards, but they don't really need to do anything. So with a legendary Kuja, you can attack, you can target Illua, but then you don't need to pay 1 CP, and that would fizzle her effect, and then you can kill it with a Shiva if you'd like. The same thing with the legendary Lightning. Even if you don't have a category 13, you can still choose Illua, make that effect fizzle, and then kill her some other way. I just wanted to bring light that this is very similar to the chapter card from Japan. So there was actually a dark Illua card. She was a 3-cost 7k. She had haste and she had an S ability. All forwards you control become active, gain haste and first strike until the end of the turn, and all forwards opponent controls lose 2000 power, haste, and first strike until the end of the turn. So it's pretty similar, but I definitely think that the new Illua is much stronger because not only are dark cards, you can't discard them. The first Illua is much harder to get rid of. This one, she's just 7k, very easy to get rid of. So on to our next card is Cid Raines. This time, Cid Raines is a backup. So it's a 4-cost EX Burst Ice backup, and it reads, when Cid Raines enters the field, choose a Del forward your opponent controls, deal it 7000 damage. I think the most important part about this card is that he's a category 13 character, which can activate the legendary lightning in Opus 4. That is the more relevant part of the text, in my opinion. Obviously, if people choose the Cid Raines, they're going to have to see if they're going to choose the forward Cid Raines or not, if they're running that one. My problem with the Cid Raines is that Devout is still a good card. It's still a very good card. And if you're putting Devouts and the Cid Raines in, your backup curve is going to be a little bit high. The other thing is the EX Burst is amazing, but in the Opus 4 meta, I found that 7000 damage is not really enough to kill a lot of the forwards that you want to kill. So it was a little underwhelming to use the heroic Light Cloud in Opus 4, and I feel like this is going to be approximately the same. Also, for Mono Ice in particular, this is more removal on a backup, so not a summon. That actually might be very useful in the Mono Ice decks incoming. So you have to keep an eye out for that as well. Next up is the Heretic Knight Garland. So he's a 7-cost 8k Earth forward, which has a job Knight. He's brave. When Heretic Knight Garland enters the field, Choose a backup of cost 4 or more. Your opponent controls, break it. A lot of people are saying this card is bad, costs too much, but you just have to compare it with cards like Sephiroth, the 8 cost Sephiroth that can kill any backup, and it's a dark card. Killing backups in the Final Fantasy trading card game is very strong. That's why Sephiroth cost 8, and that's why it's a dark card. This one is very situational. You can't break anything that costs 3 or less. So you can't break those Minwus, you can't break those Fusoyas, you can't break those red mages. But what it can break is actually a lot of good backups. The other important thing about this is Job Knight. And I can definitely 100% be seeing this in an Earth Lightning list as a one-off. Because Juke Goltana can search for it when you need it to break those important forecast backups. So what are some good backups that Heretic Knight Garland can break? So we've got the obvious, we got the Devout. Devout is always going to be played, and this is just another way to kill the Devout. And one of the reasons why people are not really loving the Heretic Knight is because they say they already have the Hecatonk here. This as just a one-off means that you're gonna get either the Hecatonk here or this card when you need it to break a 4 cost or more backup. And in a matchup that you don't need it, you can discard it, unlike the Sephiroth. Some other good backups are like the Kefka. It's a lot of investment, but it's very strong, and if you get to kill it, they lose a lot of their power. Got the Maria, a very, very strong power booster. It's very good to get rid of that backup. You got the Z-Mist, and then we got some lesser used cards like the Quattro Queen, the Heroic Lulu. We got Tella, we got Fat Chocobo. They're all good targets to break with Heretic Knight Garland. Like I said, it's not as bad as what people think. This is a very fair costed card, and I can see it being as a one-of in many, many decks. So next up is the Wind Backup Miounne. So it's a 2-cost backup. When Miounne enters the field, choose a character other than Miounne you control, and you may return it to your hand. If you do so, draw a card. So there's actually a lot of combo potential here. Let's just go straight to looking at some of the cards that can go well with this Miounne. There's a good target for Miounne in every element. So you've got a VV. You can play the VV, and then you can play Miounne to bring the VV back to your hand, and then you can play the VV again, and then essentially you killed 2 forwards. You could play Sarah to dull and freeze a forward, and then you can use Miounne to get it back to your hand, and then play Sarah again to dull and freeze another forward. There's a lot of combo potential with Van, because Van can get Miounne back to your hand so that you can play it again on any of these other targets. I'm not sure how viable this strategy is, but I would love to see it work when Opus 5 comes out. You can also cycle backups. So it says characters, so that's not only forward, that's backups as well, right? So if you have a robot on the field already, you can use this Miounne to get the robot back to your hand, and then you can play that robot again for all the value. That's something very to think about. Also in Lightning, there's Estar Soldier, so you can play Estar Soldier, dull it forward, play Miounne, get Estar Soldier back to your hand, and you obviously get the draw card, and then you can play Estar Soldier again to dull another forward, which may just win you the game. You got other cards like Al Cid. Al Cid is very popular. Another interesting thing is obviously characters includes monsters. Out of all the monsters, I didn't really see currently there's any monsters that would get any value to return to your hand other than maybe Tomberries. But I was looking at Cleon. So Cleon is one of those cards that can really restrict yourself and your opponent. But if you're playing some sort of wind water deck where you have a lockdown with Emperor and Cleon, and you have some summons in your deck, you can actually use Miounne to bring Cleon back to your hand, use the summons that you want, and then put Cleon back onto the board. I think that will be some pretty cool interactions there. The other thing is the Miounne Viking engine, I'm going to call it, which is essentially play Viking, draw a card, play Miounne, get Viking back to your hand, draw 2 cards. You're essentially paying 5 CP split over 2 cards to have 1 backup on the field and draw 3 cards. What's not to love from that? I think that this can be a very cool interaction, and if you're in Water Wind and you want some way to kind of cycle through your deck, this is actually one of the best ways to do that. So Miounne has actually a lot of synergies. I think that she will definitely be tested. I'm not 100% sure on its viability in the long term, but it's a really cool effect, and I love to see more things like this. I also think this Miounne is going to push Mono Wind even further because it lets you draw a card. So next up, we got our second fire legendary. The first fire legendary was Pelham. So this is our second fire legendary, and we're gonna go more in depth on this card, Phoenix, in our MogPod podcasts coming up next week. So be sure to tune in there. But just for a quick overview, Phoenix is a fire 7 cost summon, and you can choose a forward of cost 3 or less in your break zone, and up to 1 forward your opponent controls. Play the first dull on the field and deal the second 8,000 damage. So you essentially get to play a 3 cost from your break zone onto the field dull and kill a guy. 8,000 is going to kill a lot of things. But in case it doesn't, you have the 3 cost forward that you get into the field. Could be any removal type forward. And I've put together at least one forward in every element that will be a good target for the Phoenix. So we've got the Opus 2 Pelham. So the Opus 2 Pelham, you can bring it onto the field. So you can deal 8k to a forward and deal 7k to another forward. That's very strong. Yeah, you've got Shulk. So even though Shulk comes in dull, the 2 costs that you play from your hand, which is presumably fire, is going to be active. And then that forward can block. I think it's a very, very cool play. You've also got Pain. So Pain, you can use it. You can activate 3 of your backups, and you can draw. If you have Yuna and Riku out, a lot of value. Alternative for Pain, you've got the Light Zidane as well, which can also net you a card. You've also got Ritz. I think Ritz is a very good target for when a water player tries to bounce your forwards. You can just Phoenix, essentially kill one of their forwards and stop your forward from being bounced. Pretty much all the value. Next up, we got Dark Knight. So Dark Knight is in the same realm of the starter Red 13 card as well, which is able to give your forwards a power boost. So in the middle of combat, you can cast Phoenix, kill a forward, and then give whatever forward that's attacking or blocking the amount of power of your damage, or 3,000 power in the case of Red 13. You can also get Black Waltz 3, which essentially means that you can get rid of a 10k forward and have a good 6k body that can trade up to an 8k on the field. For water, you've got Cagnazzo. Cagnazzo, you can devastate the board because if you use Phoenix on Cagnazzo, then their forwards will lose all their power, and then you can probably win combat through that as well. And also with the Opus for Light Cloud, you can get them onto the field, deal 8k, 7k, just like Pelham. More situational, but still a very good ability. What I wanted to talk specifically about Phoenix is that the forwards come in dull. That means those forwards cannot block, and I think they just really make the card balanced. The very fact it's a forward of cost 3 or less opens up a lot more possibilities to its other Phoenix counterpart, an Opus 3, that can get a cost 2 forward. Even though I probably like that Phoenix better, I can definitely see the value in this Phoenix. What you gotta keep in mind with Phoenix is that it's very efficient to bring a card from the break zone onto the field. So if it's a forward of cost 3, it's essentially 5 CP worth of card if you're playing it directly onto the field. So any forward that you're gonna get that's already 5 CP, and you got the extra 2 CP for the 8k burn. I don't really think it's that equivalent because the forward that you're getting comes in dull, and that is a cost in itself. So maybe about 3 CP of the card is 8,000 damage. But either way, it's a very strong card, and it's definitely going to see play. Having that instant speed, bringing a forward onto the field, is actually very, very strong. So next up is Refia. Refia is a 3 cost water forward with 7,000 power with the job Warrior of Light. And the text that reads, the job Warrior of Light forwards and water forwards other than Refia you control gain 1,000 power. And her ability is dull a total of 5 active water forwards or water backups. And you can choose one forward opponent controls, return it to its owner's hand. That ability is very good. Essentially having Leviathan without actually having the card. because Leviathan is a 3-cost summon, plus the card, which is another 2 CP. So you can just dull 5 backups and have the Leviathan effect. It does get shut down by the Emperor, so hopefully we'll get more permanent answers in Mono Water for the Emperor. But the buff that she gives to Job Warrior of Light pretty much only is relevant to the Light Warrior of Light, which makes him 9,000 power and he can bitter end for 9k. That is actually very strong and makes that Warrior of Light even more resilient and contesting the light and dark spot in Mono Water against Zidane. So now people are going to run more Warrior of Light instead of Zidane. More variety is always good, and I'm very excited for this card. It also gives all other water forwards plus 1,000 power. There's actually quite a lot of other water forwards that do that. There's Quistis, there's Cecil, and then obviously the backup you got Waka, and so you can make your water guys very, very big, which is very strong. My only concern with this card is that it's yet another 3-cost water forward that is good. You don't want to fill your deck with too many 3-cost forwards, because then it gets wrecked by Zalora. And Zalora is a highly played card and probably will be when this is out. You could be essentially dulling your water forwards for them and then they can Zalora. It's very risky against ice decks. I think this card definitely helps the mono water archetype. It's going to create a new type of big water forward archetype, similar to my mono water big knights deck that I did a deck spotlight on. Also, with the Light Warrior of Light and the backup Waka, she does not get killed by the Al Cid combo, which is something very noteworthy. So that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment, or maybe what kind of content you would like to see next. Would you like to see more deck spotlights, more duel series? We do 2 videos a week, so don't miss out on that. And also next week, we've got a podcast coming up where we'll be talking a lot about the new Phoenitz legendary card. We also have a Facebook page where we actually post meme Mondays and other content. We also put the podcast up earlier on the Facebook page first. So go over there and have a like. Link in the description. Number 1 Potato Boss, out.